Good morning, Year 8. This is lesson number 46. It is either your lesson for a Tuesday or a Wednesday this week. And today we are going on a bug hunt. A lot of this lesson will be spent outside, if possible, if you're able to do that, but there is going to be a little bit of writing. So grab your pen and paper and ruler and write the title and the date and underline it. So today your job is going to be to explore either around the house or in the garden or maybe on a walk if you are able to walk in a park or in the woods, anywhere really that you are going to be able to find bugs. Now, a lot of bugs we can see and we know what they are, but some of them we're hopefully going to find some that are new and interesting and we don't know what they are. So to find out what you found, you need to use the pocket guide that has been uploaded on Show My Homework. It's really easy to use. You can identify the bugs by the number of legs that they've got. So, for example, if you find a bug that's got no legs, you can go to section 1 and you'll find that it's probably a snail, slug, or an earthworm, and you can have a look through there. So that's one way of identifying your bugs. There is another way as well. We did use this app before. You might have downloaded it, you might not have done, but if you would like to, here's a reminder of what it's called. It's called Seek. You can get it for free on any app store on your phone. And how you use this is you use your phone to scan whatever organism it is that you're looking at, and it should be able to identify what species it is. This is an example of what it looks like when you get the app up. You can scan something and it might have a little bit of difficulty. What you want is for it to get all the way to species, but sometimes it just gets stuck. So it just identified this one as class, but when I tried it from a couple of different angles, then it said that its species was cherry laurel, and it was quite funny with our lovely Astra, because first it identified her as a horse, but then it got dog. So it's not foolproof, but it is really good. It's really fun. If you would like to do it, go outside, see what you can find. Miss Nixon and I would love to see all the different species that you can find, and points and maybe a prize for anyone that can find the most exotic or the most interesting species and send it to us. Before you get started on your bug hunt, it's really important to look after yourself and to look after the bugs that you find. If you are going to touch any bugs, you must handle them gently. If possible, you should really be using equipment to pick them up, so possibly a small piece of Tupperware or a little container. In most cases, it's not necessary to pick them up, so the kindest and safest thing to do is just observe them, just watch them in their natural habitat and see what they're up to. If you do put a bug in a jar to look at it, don't keep it for too long. Make sure that it's got some air to breathe and don't leave it in the sun. And always just be safe, be careful, tell someone where you're going, tell someone what you're doing, and look after those bugs. These are your aims today. I'd like you to find at least 3 different types of bug. I'd also like you to complete the table, which you'll find on the next slide in a second. And I'd like you, because you are a scientist, you're a biologist, you should be able to make suggestions about the bug's behaviour, their habitats, and their adaptations. Now, a suggestion is just your best idea. You're not expected to know everything about the bugs that you find, but you can suggest some conclusions about what you find, and there'll be an example for you on the next slide, so keep watching. Okay, for this you're going to need a ruler and a pencil to draw out this table very neatly, and I would suggest drawing this table before you start so that you're ready to fill it out. You're going to need columns for the insect name and a drawing or a photo of it, a column for the appearance, a column for how is it well adapted, what habitat it was found in, and why is it in this environment. I've done one as an example to let you know what kind of things you could be writing. So let's say that you found a dragonfly. The appearance of a dragonfly, you're just saying exactly what you see. So I can see a long thin body, it's got 2 wings, and it's very brightly coloured, it's a bright blue colour. The next column is a bit more of a challenge. How is it well adapted? Well, for this, you need to look at what it looks like and think, how does that help it? So it's got wings. Why has it got wings? It's got wings for flying. Why has it got such a long, thin body? It's to be aerodynamic, a bit like a racing car. And why is it brightly coloured? It's bright coloured to attract mates. What habitat it was found in? They are normally found hovering over a pond. And why is it in this environment? Well, dragonflies actually lay their eggs under the water, and their nymphs, which is the name for their babies, they grow underwater. So dragonflies have to stay in that environment to lay their eggs. Don't worry if you need to Google something, that would be a brilliant bit of research. So if you find a bug and you want to know a little bit more about it to fill out the table, have a Google, see what you can find. Okay, first things first, on my bug hunt, I am going to go somewhere where I've seen a lot of insects recently, and these are on these daisies. And if you look closely, you can see a big cluster of these guys hanging out on this daisy stem. Now these are ants. I'm sure that we can recognise ants without using the app. I tried to use the app and all it wanted to identify was the flowers. So I want you to just kind of think, why are the ants behaving in this way? Can you just suggest why? They're all clustered on this stem of this daisy. There are also, if you can see, tiny little greenish blobs near them. So what could those greenish blobs be, do you think? Come up with a couple of suggestions. I'm thinking that they could be potentially breeding, and those could be their eggs. Or it could be that some other insects have been breeding and laid their eggs, and the ants know this, so they've come to feed on the other insects' eggs, perhaps. So we don't know for sure unless we are ant experts, but it's always good to be able to make a couple of suggestions. So there's my first bug in my bug hunt. So while you're on your bug hunt, you may not be able to see the insect itself, but you might be able to see signs of the insect. And here in the garden, we've got these planks of wood, and all along them are these perfectly round holes. They're actually fairly big if I put a finger by one. They're quite large for an insect to have made, and I'm not sure what's made these, but it could be some type of beetles that like to worm their way into the wood and eat it and make their nest in there, and some types of wasps do that as well. And this stuff down here is actually what's come out of this hole when it's been boring in, and it's made up of their droppings as well, and that's called frass. So even if you don't see a particular type of bug, you can see signs of it if you're looking. There's other signs up here, of course, cobwebs and spiders' webs. So I can imagine that in there are quite a few spiders hiding. I'd like you to think about, why is this behaviour going to be advantageous for, let's imagine this is a beetle that's bored its way into this wood. Why is that a behaviour that is going to be advantageous? Why would it want to do that? Is it to eat, to breed, to hide, to catch prey, to hide from predators? What do you think? Make your own suggestion and see if you can find any signs of bugs and insect activity. A really good way to find bugs and insects is by pulling up weeds, because a lot of the time they like to hide around the roots and at the bottom. If you're going to do this though, please make sure you're protected. I've got some gloves on that are going to protect my hands from any weeds that might sting or scratch or irritate my skin. So I'm just going to pull this up and let's see if we've got anything hiding under here. I can see some little ants down there, but nothing very big. What about this one? Oh, hard to get a good grip on the weeds. You want to try and get the root up if you're pulling weeds out. Ah, now look at this guy that's just crawled out. He, to me, looks like some kind of flying ant or a beetle, so he's just come out because I've disturbed him by pulling up the weeds in the garden. There's a very large weed over here, so let's see if we've got anything hiding in the roots under here. Oh. Ah, now I can see a woodlouse here that's been disturbed, and he's trying to make his way back underneath the soil, underneath the rocks. So what type of habitat do you think that woodlice prefer to live in? Why do you think they prefer that habitat? So think about where they're going. You know, do they want to be out in the sun and the dry, or do they want to be where it's dark and damp? Why do you think they might prefer that? Think about that for the insects that you're finding. What habitat are they in, and why is that an advantage for them? Another good way to find insects is usually to move something that they might be hiding underneath. If you're going to do this, make sure it's not too heavy. If it's very heavy, get someone to help you. Don't try to move it on your own because you might hurt yourself. So if we move this here, we've got something here, very, very small. You see this curly guy? Do we know what insect that one is? I would like you to try to use your bug identification guide for this one. So he's on the move now. I'll try and focus. He's got lots and lots of legs. That's a clue I'm going to give you. He's very small and he's got lots of legs. See if you can identify who that is using your bug identification guide. If you happen to have a composter in your garden, this is a really excellent place to find insects because they a lot of them are what are called decomposers, and they want to eat away at all of the lovely plant material that's in that composter, and that's actually how it helps turn it into compost. So it's very important to keep a composter in a dark and moist environment so that they can work away at breaking down all the stuff in there. But if we open up the lid, we might see some things fly out. We might see some things crawling on the surface. So let's have a little look here. Oh, wow. So I can straight away see some wood lice at the back there crawling around. I see a massive cobweb covering up the whole thing. So we can imagine that there's some sort of spider in here. What's this on the wall of the composter? Big, big, big slug there. And can we see anyone else hiding in here? Let's see what we've got. Can see some woodlouse here. Don't know if you can see these two, but I've got one woodlouse cheekily hitching a ride off the back of another one. I've got lots of guys hanging around in here. Did you think about the question earlier? What sort of environment do they like? Well, there's loads of them in here, and it's very dark, and it's very damp, and there's lots of things for them to eat and to break down. Loads of woodlice in here. Research task, can you look up a woodlouse please and see what type of organism is it related to? You might be surprised, it might not be anything found on land, it might be something found on sea. If I zoom in on this cobweb here, hopefully you can see the culprit that's made this cobweb. Bit hard to get him in focus, but there's a spider there. We know how many legs spiders have, don't we? You can count them up. Should see 8. This guy is lucky he hasn't lost any of his legs. He's got all of his 8 legs there, so he's an arachnid. Okay, now that you've seen my bug hunt, I hope that inspires you to go and find some interesting bugs of your own. I've put this table back up so that you can have another look at it and pause the video and copy it out if you need to. Remember, this is what you're aiming to fill out, but more importantly, you've just got to go out there, see what bugs you can find. You can use the identification guide to find out what you've discovered. And if you find any amazing ones, take some pictures, send them in. Really like seeing what you guys are up to. And now that you've got to the end of the lesson and you've done your bug hunt, head to Show My Homework for a quick spelling test. And really, really well done, you're 8.